There you go. Well, welcome this evening to our first of the season book club or book discussion with our host, Drina Nemes. And we're so glad that you could join us tonight. I think it's going to be a little bit more interactive, and we hope that you'll be able to join in at some time and with your observations. But I'm going to let Drina take over. I'm Nancy Howell. I'm one of the board members of Western Cuyahoga Audubon. Oh, yes, we also have another board member that is going to join in and share with us some of, well, I don't want to spoil it. So let's get started. Thanks so much, Drina. Looking forward to this.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our discussion of Close to Home, The Wonders of Nature Just Outside Your Door by Thor Hanson. Don't you love birds and birding? The very first bird mentioned in Close to Home is a hermit thrush, and it is the spark bird for this book and for Thor Hanson. This thrush collided with his office window, and sadly, as often happens with such events, it did die. The author realizes then he had no idea that a hermit thrush was in his own backyard. Surprising, considering that he studies nature and writes nature books. Okay, so this is the first of 3 book discussions for this 6th season. We started in 2020 with the pandemic, and I'd like to thank Gloria Ferris and Betsy O'Hagan for getting it off the ground. We started in the pandemic to have a way to stay connected. Coming up in the new year, January 20th, 26th, we'll be discussing Wild America by Roger Tory Peterson and James Fisher. And then in April, we will have a follow-up actually to this book, Wild America, when we read Return to Wild America. This is the 70th anniversary of the Roger Tory Peterson, James Fisher book, so it's appropriate that we read it. And then it's the 20th anniversary of Scott Weidensaul's book, and he wrote it at the 50th anniversary of Wild America. Well, our author, he's quite an amazing guy, and I want to say that I think one of the best words that might describe him is enthusiastic. He is a conservation biologist, Guggenheim Fellow, award-winning author. Perhaps you saw his Live Spring series on PBS, in which he and others go out into the field in actual springtime live and share what's going on. He has a wonderful website and many videos there, including Live Spring, but many other videos, and also much other information and his research. And here are the books that he's written. Excuse me. Close to Home, that we're reading tonight, discussing tonight, was published this year, as is this children's book, The Escape Artist. And 3 years ago, our group read Hurricane Lizards and Plastic Squid, and that was about the biology of climate change and how we're seeing evolution right before our eyes with climate change. Well, I have a couple of maps here. And first I thought we'd start with just a map of where Thor Hanson's backyard is. He's in the state of Washington in the San Juan Islands. And I myself am not that familiar with this area. And I had no idea that there's so much water here in this part of Washington. But our other map is going to be a guide for us tonight. And this is at the beginning of the book, and it was created by the illustrator Chris Shields. And I asked him if we could use this graphic as a way to guide the discussion, and he very generously offered for me to use the graphic. He is a wildlife natural artist living in England and seems to be quite well known from what's been said about it, not only in Europe, but in China. So I appreciate that he gave us this opportunity. I thought I would just kind of look at the structure of the book. I find when I do this for myself, it helps me to get an overall view of the book. And Mr. Hanson does talk about the three major parts of the book: seeing, exploring, and restoring. And so he has a section, the sections are organized by those major topics. Additionally, in the first section, we have the introduction, and it does fit in with this seeing idea. And then in the third section, we have a conclusion called his chapter is called Wild Crescendo. And that also is kind of a look at what's been happening with restoration, not only here or in his yard, but elsewhere. I just want to say, if you have the book, if you get a chance, look at the citizen science resources. It's just 2 pages, but it's just filled with all these wonderful resources and websites for all kinds of citizen science that's going on these days. A lot of us know eBird, we know iNaturalist, but there are so many others that will take you and transport you. And also there are resources for people to get involved. The notes section I really appreciated because he goes into a lot of storytelling and anecdotes that make the text more enjoyable. And then he's got a pretty substantial bibliography going back way in time. He's good at history too. Well, right at the end of the introductory chapter, he writes, "I hope that reading this book will inspire you to stop reading it, throw open the door, and head for the nearest green space you can find, all senses on high alert." That did get to me, and I did go out into my backyard. And I'd just like to show you with a little video of what happened on this beautiful September day when I went out to look at these closed gentians that I have, that I've had for a few years, and they have the tightest of tightest buds, and they generally do not open. That's inherent in the plant. So let's look and see what happens here. I had never seen them open before. This was kind of fun watching because the bees had a little bit of a time getting in and out of that. Well, I'm wondering if any of you have things that you are just really want to share about what you have in your backyard. Nancy, I wonder if you could moderate. I'm not seeing anyone on my screen.
You can unmute yourself and or raise your hand, your paw, the little symbol there, and just blurt out if you'd like anything that you've noticed in your yard that you've, again, thrown that door open because you were just stop reading, stop doing what you're doing, get off the computer and just enjoy something that you're seeing.
Drina, is this where I'm supposed to share? Or did you have me for a different spot?
Yeah, different spot.
Oh, okay.
If you want to do it now.
No, it's fine. I didn't know because
Okay.
I haven't been counting your slides, so I didn't know if this was slide
I
11.
don't think we haven't gotten up to 11.
Okay.
Well, I'll add something.
Okay.
This is the first year that I've had more monarch caterpillars in the yard than I've had in the past.
Oh,
I have swamp milkweed. And I
hmm.
was watching one caterpillar going on a new leaf, had finished feeding on one. And the first thing that caterpillar did was bite the petiole, which is the little stem from the leaf leading to the main stem of the plant. It bit that petiole and the leaf drooped. Then the caterpillar went down the main rib, the main vein of the center, in the center of the leaf, and bit it like 3 times. You could see it chewing, and then went to the tip of the leaf and started eating. And I'm
Wow.
like, what was that all about? And then I
Uh-huh.
started noticing where it had fed before, all those leaves, again, had bent down as if, again, that caterpillar had chewed the stem, that petiole. And the only thing I'm thinking, now maybe some of you have raised monarchs or watched this, so maybe you can add something here. The only thing I can think of is, milkweed has that milky sap, that latex in it. And perhaps that's not super tasty. Yes, they eat it. The monarch caterpillars do consume it when they're feeding, but maybe that was to stem some of the flow, no pun intended, stem, to stem some of the flow so they wouldn't get so much in their mouths and feed extensively on it. I don't know. I haven't researched it, but had anybody noticed that if you had monarch caterpillars in your yard?
I
Or
have not.
has anybody read anything about that type of thing? Well, I will just have to investigate at some point. Maybe chat with somebody who is a monarch raiser and see if this is something that they do and why they do it. Thank you.
So I just looked it up, and this is AI overview, so take it with a grain of salt. But it does say that that the monarch caterpillars have a method to deal with the sap, sometimes chewing a notch on the leaf to stop the sap flow before eating. So maybe that suggests that they don't really care for the sap after all.
Hmm.
They must eat some of the sap as they're feeding on the leaf because it's not totally out of the veins of on the leaf, but maybe they just don't like a whole lot of it gushing into their mouth at one time. So thank you so much. I think my observation may be semi-correct.
Okay. Well, the first section of the book is focused upon seeing, and he encourages himself and everyone to take seeing quite seriously. I thought we would go over this map of his property. He surely has a very big yard. Um, and here is his house. And he talks in a chapter about how he can, when he's washing the dishes, he can see the pond. And here is the lean-to, the blind that he built so that he could be around critters and they wouldn't notice him and he might see more. Coming over here, I think this is what he referred to as a former horse arena, and he's been using it to promote the growth of ground bees. He's got a garden, has quite a few chickens and an orchard. This is his raccoon shack where he does his work. Then coming over to the meadow, this is where he set up a malaise, a tent so that he could catch bugs. We go into a pine forest, and here, this is a reminder of him climbing up the tree with some assistance from professional tree climbers. But he wants to see what his property looks like from above. And he has such a good time doing that, finds new things. Here we have what we'll come across in the chapter 10, a brown creeper. And then there's a road above. And then coming back down the road, here we have one of the episodes where he finds a wasp and its nest. And then he does a lot of wood cutting and chopping. But our first stop is going to be actually in chapter 1 with the Hutton's vireo. And this is another dense stand of trees. So in this first chapter, which is called Look at Your Fish, he starts off by talking about just walking through his yard. And he's about to embark on this project of paying a lot of attention to his yard. And as he's walking to his shack, he hears a Hutton's vireo. And he says to himself, oh, that's interesting. And then he says, I'll come back and get to it. And then he realizes, wait a minute, I'm in my backyard. I want to pay attention. So he's able to follow, he finds the bird and he's able to follow it as it hops around and ends up in a bush called an ocean spray, which I'm not familiar with, but he pays attention and he does find a nest. And he does tell us, and I think it's just pretty interesting how he says it. They're just out of reach above my head. My eyes finally made out what amounted to be the first biology lesson of the morning. If you want to hide a nest in the middle of lichens dangling from a twig, then build the nest out of lichens dangling from a twig. It was a master class in camouflage. So he sits and watches the vireos for a good while, but then he hears some noises that worry him, and it's the notorious raider of a raccoon. And he watches and observes what happens and tries to take any attention off the vireo's nest. I was able to find on eBird a really great video of a Hutton's vireo getting nesting material. There he goes. Well, in this description, Thor talks about the lichens that are used in the nest, but very much like his writing, he not only tells us lichens, but he gives us 3 different genera of lichens. And so we get a lot more information, appreciation for the diversity that there is, and makes it so, I find it just so interesting to have so much to think about and look. So then the title of this chapter, Look at Your Fish, relates to what seems to be a well-known story. It was new to me, but Samuel Scudder, a budding entomologist studying at Harvard University, has Louis Agassiz as his professor and mentor. And Agassiz tells him, take this fish and look at it. We call it a hamulon. By and by, I will ask you what you have seen. I have placed here a picture of a hamulon, and it's, rather attractive. But imagine that a hamulon is in a jar, and it's also with alcohol, and it's yellow, and it may not be at all attractive to look at. So Scudder starts looking at it, and within 10 minutes, he said, I've seen all that could be seen. But he knows not much time's gone by, so he looks some more and looks some more, and then he reports back, and his report leads Agassiz to say, "You have not looked very carefully. Look again, look again." And so he looks for 3 days. And it is a remarkable experience for him because he acquires an ability to look extremely carefully, and it sets the stage for the rest of his career in entomology. Going back to our map, here we're going to talk a little bit about the wasp and the nest it built, a kind of a turret. And this chapter is Get Small. "What made that, Papa?" Noah asked, pointing down at a patch of sparse grass and clover by the side of the path. So begins chapter 2, Get Small. In this story, the backyard discovery takes on a bit of sleuthing as well as technical support. Tor makes the case that children are so good at discovery, they're better than adults who have learned to block out extraneous information. Children will ask the right questions. As Tor pursues more and more about this turret, he gets a bit techie and pulls out his camera to video the turret while he and Noah go about their usual activities. Later, they study the video and slow it down. Quote, "Frame by frame, we advance the video as the wasp circled like a helicopter approaching a landing pad in rough weather. Then it alighted on the rim, tucked its wings neatly across its back, and disappeared down the tunnel." The next day, he goes back and records again. Now this time, he writes, "Empty-handed on every outbound flight, it always returned bearing the same cargo groped firmly in its mandibles, a small lime green grub." Thor, with his knowledge, knows that this is a hunter. It's a female wasp, as they have the ability to inject venom and males do not. And with the help of the camera and observing behavior, he was able to identify the turret builder as a potter wasp, a group aptly named for their skillful use of clay and mud. So this is a close-up too of a potter wasp and another kind of mud nest. In the book, the turret that they show, Mr. Hanson says that those kind of turrets are relatively rare. I could not find a picture of one. So the camera now, seeing with the camera, what does that do for our ability to see? And here I invite Michelle, if she would share her information. This is one of her pictures of a moth that she took and sent to me.
Yeah. So, do you mind if I share my screen? I have a presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm just gonna,
Do I have to do something?
I think that I can grab it because I'm co-host. Let me see. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my
Oh,
screen?
yes.
Okay. And you don't see my notes?
No.
You see okay. Okay, great. All right. So, I found this moth in my backyard and I did a little bit of journaling. So I'm going to read you all a bit of that as I click through some of the photos that I took. So, this old man of the night, a Polyphemus moth, came to visit my backyard patio just before dusk on Sunday, September 7th, 2025. He was very still, so I grabbed my macro lens and camera to document the occasion. You can tell he's a male by the massive feathery antennae, which he uses to detect a female's pheromones. The female has much more slender antennae. As you can see, he is weathered and I believe dying, although his inactivity could have been due to the colder evening temps, which were dipping into the lower 60s. It is also a little late in the season for this species to be active. Their numbers rapidly decline after August. Adult Polyphemus moths have only one purpose, the propagation of its species, and therefore do not have mouth parts to eat and can only survive for about a week after emerging from a cocoon. Lido, my 13-year-old son, was with me and asked if he could touch it. You can see his gentle fingers in this photo inching slowly toward the moth's fuzzy abdomen. The Polyphemus moth has an average wingspan of 6 inches. As you can see here, I gently picked him up and moved him to my patio table, hoping the stimulation would make him fly. He tried. He began to shiver in an attempt to raise his body temperature for flight. However, he was not successful and toppled over onto the table. This is the last image I took. Lido and I made the decision to move him one last time to a secluded spot under a bush where he could either die in peace or find the resolve for one final flight and perhaps one last mating attempt. He was gone from that spot in the morning. Godspeed, old man. All right.
Wow.
Good.
You can, so much you can see them with the camera that we couldn't see with our own eyes. Any other thoughts or comments about cameras and what they do for us for nature seeing?
Well, just it's like a microscope, and it really takes you so close you can see all of the detail. And that was wonderful.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Drina.
Leah's my friend from California.
I found that having a camera really helps me to just keep an appreciation for what I'm seeing, because there's so much that I miss with my naked eye, and then I'm out there taking pictures and then bring them back to my computer and I see even more than what I saw in person a lot of times. Yeah, it helps me to appreciate the details of the creatures. It helps me to learn more because perhaps I'm capturing behaviors that were really quick, especially with birds. You know, they move around really quick. And it helps me learn more about what I've seen.
I would think it helps you with learning identification of birds too, or any kind of creature.
Absolutely.
Michelle, are you typically wielding both binoculars and camera?
Yes.
Whoa! So on Saturday, were you carrying both?
Yes, I was.
Wow, very slick. One for the right hand, one for the left hand.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Well, sometimes, I do just want to take a look, and I don't need to have the picture, or I want to just find the bird or the animal or whatever it is. So I like having both binoculars and camera.
I happen to appreciate people that can multitask like that. I can barely walk and look at the same time.
Well, thanks a lot, Michelle.
Sure.
Now, do I share again? Is that what happens?
Yes, you'll need to reshare your screen. Do you have,
Okay.
yeah. There you go.
Okay. That is such a beautiful moth too.
Will you remind me of the name?
Polyphemus. P-O, let me spell it for you. Polyphemus.
And then was there like a more like colloquial name? Like, did you say bearded man or something
Oh, I
like
called
that?
him Old Man of the Night. That was what I was calling him.
Oh, I
But
like that.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, he's
I did that.
okay.
Yeah.
Polyphemus. Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
I've put the name in the chat, and that is its science. Polyphemus is, I think, the genera or the genus of that moth.
When I put it into um a naturalist, that came back as its common name. I don't know. I did have the um genus and species in my original journaling, but I took that out because it's hard to pronounce. I didn't want to read it out loud to you all. And I won't now. I wish I hadn't. Yeah, I don't have it at my fingertips anymore. Sorry.
I still like bearded guy. This is great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michelle.
Sure, no problem. My pleasure.
Well, jumping ahead to one of my favorite chapters, chapter 10, the limiting factor. On the map, this is where the brown creeper emerges, and we're going to talk about that and also what is the limiting factor. This is where, on the map, where Thor hears and then spots a brown creeper on his walk on a frosty morning going to the raccoon shack. It's February and few birds are singing, especially the way the brown creeper does. Thor notes that creepers do not nest on his extensive property. He's always asking questions and he wonders why not. There are plenty of trees, plenty of yummy insects. In the Pacific Northwest, they are there all year round. And though they're quite well camouflaged, they aren't shy and they're often easy to observe climbing up a tree. But something was really missing, and that was real estate. The real estate and housing in Thor's yard is not in the desirable neighborhood for the brown creeper market. Housing is a limiting factor, just like today for human beings. Thor devotes chapter 10 to this crucial concept, and he recounts some history while sharing this story about this concept. Liebig's law of the minimum, often simply called Liebig's law or the law of the minimum, a principle developed in agricultural science by Carl Spengler and later popularized by Justus von Liebig. It states that growth is dictated not by total resources available, but by the scarcest or the limiting factor. And this law has also been applied to biological populations and ecosystem models for factors such as sunlight or mineral nutrients. The anecdote gives credit where credit is due to the original idea by Carl Spengler, a German botanist who noted in the 1820s that boosting plant growth required identifying and increasing the scarcest mineral nutrients in the soil. Justus von Liebig, considered a founder of organic chemistry, passed the idea off as his own, even though Spengler protested. Recent attempts to rename the idea as Spengler-Liebig law have not caught on. And in Wikipedia, it's just referred to as Liebig. And I think it's time to give credit to Carl Spengler. So in this chapter, in talking about brown creepers, I'd like you just to take a moment just to look at these pictures, and we're going to see a video. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your picture of a brown creeper. And if you notice here, the bark, it looks like it's fairly weathered, maybe a little loose, maybe not. And then let's take a look at a video And Thor Hanson was able to see some nesting and how brown creepers nest. Sometimes you can see a little activity over on this part.
That's so cool.
I really like this video too, just for getting such a good look at the back of the brown creeper. I never noticed that rufous color before. I'm wondering if any of you have seen a brown creeper nest before. I have not. I was just on a birding tour and the tour guide was not familiar with brown creeper nests. But for Thor Hanson, the problem was that in his neighborhood, there just weren't trees that were old enough to have bark that was loose, desiccated, and that could accommodate that type of nest. So I was thinking, he says, could I entice creepers into nesting with such a simple ruse? What was that ruse? Well, he was going to take some bark from his old Douglas fir trees that he used when he chopped wood, he would have leftover bark. And he thought he could attach that to trees in his yard and see what might happen. So he has everything else that he needs. He's got the right kind of food and the right kind of weather and climate. So he does this in late winter. He puts up 3 nests, potential nests, and he checks on them fairly often and he doesn't find anything happening. And he's not that hopeful, but when he goes back in June, out of the 3 nests, one has some activity, looked like a little bit of nesting material might be there, but would it be a brown creeper? But the 3rd bark shows definitely a nest. And he is so excited about that. And also in this chapter, he talks about a kind of a quirky and perhaps fun guy, Joe Buckler, who, having sustained a bad accident and hurt his back, could no longer work as a freelance carpenter. So he starts making birdhouses. And he makes all kinds of birdhouses and suitable for a variety of birds. And Thor visits him and purchases 4 of them. All in all, the restorations that he does to his property, he put up 16 bark slabs for brown creepers, 12 wooden boxes of various sizes for different kinds of birds, nuthatches or screech owls, 3 hanging songbird baskets, a repurposed mailbox, and then 1 large gourd hollowed out with a hole just wide enough for a chickadee. So he was busy and fitting with the theme of restoring and doing something really to help out our natural world. So I wrote to him and received a letter, an email from him last week, and I asked him, well, what's been happening with the nests on his property? And he said that he has violet green swallows, tree swallows, bewitched wrens, house wrens, and last spring he did have 3 brown creeper nests. And he is trying to figure out if he can get the right type of nest to attract chestnut-backed chickadees. And here a picture of these birds that he has now on in his yard. And he had made that effort to build up that limiting factor, which was housing, especially for the brown creepers, but perhaps for the chickadees also. So just beautiful birds here, especially this violet green swallow, brown creeper, house wren, chestnut-back chickadee, so cute, a tree swallow, and a Bewick's wren. So some other resources, again, his website's fantastic. This is a link to a YouTube video of Thor Hanson talking about close to home in Seattle at a library club. And it is just excellent. I think it's about 35 to 40 minutes, and he does his own presentation about the book. And then there's some questions and answers. And then we read Hurricane Lizards and Plastic Squid, and this is a link to that discussion. I also just read his children's book, A True Story of Occupus Adventure, which was released this year also. Again, it's a true story about a octopus that was able to get out of an aquarium and make it to the sea. And it's in a kind of a loose rhyme. I'll just go ahead here and close out, and then we can have any discussion if people would like to. But if you can, join us January 20th for Wild America, and or April 28th when we get into Return to Wild America. The Western Cuyahoga Audubon Society, all of our book discussions are archived. And then here is the link to our website itself. So thank you. And I'll just open up for any comments or questions or parts of the book that people would like to talk about.
Well, thank you so much, Drina. This is Nancy Howell, and I just wanted to let everyone know that this is recorded. It will go up on our YouTube site at Western Cuyahoga. So if you missed some of the slides with some of the links, you can go back and look and try them out at some point. But I like the information about the limiting factor. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but Western Cuyahoga Audubon has put up a purple martin house at the Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds. And we're working to get another house set up at West Creek Conservancy in Parma. Because one of the limiting factors for martins is finding adequate housing. So that's one of the things that we are working towards. I'd like to see us get some kestrel boxes up because I know there's kestrels nesting in certain areas, and there's good kestrel habitat. It just that there's just not as many hollow trees or trees big enough or trees that don't have a squirrel or a raccoon or something like that in it. So yeah, there's just little things like that. I really enjoyed his book and really enjoyed Drina's comments on
Thank
this
you.
presentation. So hopefully somebody else has something to say.
Or share something about your yard or anything about your pursuit of seeing and exploring and restoring.
Well, I'll share a part of the book that I found entertaining. It was chapter 7, talking about something that all is wet, but bear with the middle school humor from me, but I enjoyed talking about the nymphs and how nymphs breathe anally. And so when they expel that breath, sure enough, they have propulsion from the rear, so you can see
Yeah.
them scooting around, and I thought that was very entertaining. So that made me
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah. And so creative on the part of nature.
Oh, heck yeah. Like, why not?
I really appreciated in the book how he looked at everything from so many different ways, from high above, from underground, water, and then all the connections he makes with other stories around the world and around the country, the latest research.
It reminded me of a book that I had read a while ago by Alexandra Horowitz called On Looking. And she breaks down a walk into 11 different chapters with 11 different types of people, and how doing the same walk with different types of people gets you to look at things in a different way. One of them is a child, one of them is a dog, one is a sign maker. And so they're like walking
Oh,
around the city, and like how he sees the year a sign was built, or what material it was made with, or what the marketing scheme of the company is. Walked around with a geologist, and I feel like he kind of touches on this. And Drina, you brought it up, and then also Michelle, I noticed it in the conversation about the moth. Like, you saw the moth and your reaction was to get the camera to document, and then so like from a scientific perspective, and then also like write about it in a creative perspective. Your son's immediate reaction was to like want to touch it, like what a teenage boy thing to want to do is like touch a fuzzy body of a thing. uh Somebody on the call, whoever wanted to know the scientific name of it, so like doing the same exact exercise from a few different angles. I thought that he really did that with this book, so literally different angles and then also like different perspectives. So I thought that was really cool.
I read his book on the feather or feathers, and it I learned so much, the detail and just again going from different perspectives. He's very good writer.
very good writer.
I read his book on seeds, and that was fascinating. Who would have thought, we love seeds, whether to eat or to plant. But yeah, it's a good one.
Nancy, you have a big yard, and you have a lot in your yard.
I do, yeah, and I know, and I don't know everything that's in it. I know I crawl around on my hands and knees. As a matter of fact, I told Drina this the other day. When we first moved into the yard, it was, I guess it was maybe late summer, early fall, and the yellow hawkweed, which is what I thought it was blooming. And they stand maybe 12 inches, 10 inches tall, and I was crawling around on my hands and knees in the backyard looking at it and looking closely. And the neighbor comes over and she thinks I'm looking for my contact lens. So yeah, here's the crazy lady crawling around looking at things on her hands and knees.
I think you have some chickens too, don't you?
I do, yep.
Uh-huh.
And I have fruit trees, and I'm not getting a whole lot of fruit on them because the raccoons and the squirrels do a real good job of stripping it before they even get ripe.
Uh-huh.
Annoying.
Oh,
I thought something
yeah.
else kind of cool he talked about was like how I think we often think that everything that has been discovered has already been discovered. And I think he kind of touches on that pretty early on, that probably every single one of us has something in just our little, my yard is very, very small, but I'm sure there's something back there that somebody doesn't yet know about. And that like makes the intrigue even more possible, like aside from our own, just like curiosity, like the actual fact that there's things yet to be discovered is quite a carrot to dangle too. I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
And to that point, like I live in an apartment building, and I look outside and I just see what my apartment building made as like a little dog park. And I see my European starlings and my house sparrows and occasionally the red-tailed hawks and occasionally the peregrine falcon. But Yeah, I take it as a point to challenge myself. I was like, I might not be able to craft so much out there to create more habitat. Maybe I could. Maybe I could convince the property management company to put up a birdhouse or something. But just to look, there's got to be more. You know, I love all bird species, but maybe there's more. There's more to learn. I gotta challenge myself to do it though, and actually go outside. Too often it's me looking like the creepy neighbor with the spotting scope and or binoculars, just looking down the street. Not at people, I promise. It's just at birds and things. But gotta get out there.
You can also like look at the same thing you've always seen in a different way, you know, like
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
Nancy, you and I had chatted about Amy Tan's book, The Backyard Bird Chronicles, and she talks a lot about her just the intro of her work through John Muir laws. And one of his videos talks about how when you're drawing a leaf, we think about a leaf just like 2D. And very rarely are you looking at a leaf like perfectly perpendicular to your face, that there's a bend to it. And so, like, to picture the bend of the leaf and see the shadow underneath. And so, like, you can look at the same exact tree an infinite number of ways, the same tree you always see.
Mm-hmm.
So I like
Mm-hmm.
that idea too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a great thought. It reminds me of the different morphs of red-tailed hawks.
Mm.
And when I travel out west, and that dark morph red-tailed hawk looks nothing like my light morph red-tailed hawk, and I just have to trust myself. Just look at it, enjoy it, but it's a red-tailed hawk.
Or as Kristen said, you know, if you're an artist, you're going to look at that leaf in a whole different way. If you're a watercolorist, if you're a sculptor, wood carver, you're just gonna, man, you could put a
Mhm.
whole gallery together just on one leaf, and it would be so interesting. Maybe even just like our group right here to, all right, maple leaf. What do you think? So that would be kind of interesting.
I would love for someone to animate a stop motion of Nancy the monarch caterpillars eating the milkweed, like hitting the vein, or what do you call the
The
stem?
stem it's called the petiole.
Hit the petiole and you get the droop, and then you get
Yeah,
the, yeah, that'd be so cool. I never thought about that. My mom has a way station at her house, and um she puts the milkweed and finds the caterpillars and puts them in a little enclosure, and then the chrysalis, and then they emerge, and then she tags them and they go off and
Oh. Oh.
die and become another generation, and then that dies. And yeah, the monarchs, that was interesting to read about. But
Oh.
I'll have to ask her, because she cuts the milkweed, and I don't know if that would affect it.
that might affect it. Yeah, and again,
Right.
I have the swamp milkweed, which has a much thinner, narrower leaf than the common milkweed, which is a much wider leaf. So I don't know, do they eat things differently if it's a different type of milkweed?
Yeah,
Mhm.
great point.
Oof.
I'll
Yes.
definitely talk to
Oh,
mom about that.
this is science. Oh my gosh. More questions arise.
One thing that happened in my yard this summer, which has not happened before, is I do have a lot of common milkweed and swamp milkweed. And the common milkweed had so many aphids. I have not ever had that many. And they hurt the plant. But meanwhile, also I learned from this book that they eat so much that they're always pushing out their digestive products, which is sweet material, honeydew. And so the milkweed plants I have are covered with honeydew, and different ants and flies are there, and a few yellow jackets. But I'm not sure what happened this year that there were so very many aphids in my yard.
Interesting. Oh, I don't know, you know, if we're going to be ending shortly, but I'm going to take a little quote out of the book. It's page 222. It's at the very, very end of Wild Crescendo. And it talks about, you know, just making, he had a head cold and he wanted to get out, and he says, And as the saying goes among biologists, nature is cheaper than therapy. So yeah, so if you need something to clear your head, clear your soul, whatever, yeah, take a walk in nature. And I'm hoping that our organization can do that. And by walking, taking people living in urban areas, just to enjoy what's around them, just to marvel at, the weeds growing out of cracks or
Mhm.
climbing up a brick wall, or just, again, you're just amazed at nature.
Mhm.
All
Thank
right,
you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Drina.
It was such a
Have
good book.
Yeah, have a good evening, everyone. I
Thanks,
think it's raining
Drina.
outside.
I think so. Thank
Good
you,
night.
Drina. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
have a good one.
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.